Chapter 103. Jing Yu paused for a moment, then looked at Fang Zicheng in horror and said, "So, I tricked Imperial concubine Fu's sister?" Fang Zicheng nodded silently. Jing Yu paused for a moment, then under the shocked gazes of Fang Zicheng and Shangguan Linglan, she hugged the box of money and ran out, saying, "Lan Lan, let's run. Before Fu Ruoqing finds out." Jing Yu? Shangguan Linglan held his forehead and looked at Jing Yu helplessly. He suddenly wondered how he was able to stay sane after interacting with Jing Yu for so long. If we don't run now, when are we going to run? I've personally experienced Fu Ruoqing's methods of dealing with people. Jing Yu said, speechless. So you didn't know that Princess Leiyang was Imperial concubine Fu's sister? Fang Zicheng blinked and asked Jing Yu. Of course I didn't know. If I had known, I would have given up this position immediately. Jing Yu hugged the box and said pitifully, "You guys didn't tell me? Princess Leiyang is Imperial concubine Fu's sister. Everyone in the Imperial City should know this." Fang Zicheng said quietly, then turned to look at Jing Yu and said, "You didn't even know who was behind Princess Leiyang, and you dared to offend her. I'm impressed." Shangguan Linglan said quietly, "I thought you could do whatever you wanted because you had the support of the 9 emperors, huh?" Jing Yu paused and looked at Fang Zicheng, then looked at Shangguan Linglan. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and said, "Oh right. I forgot that I still have Shao Qian. Why would I run?" "You really don't have the slightest awareness of being the 9th Imperial concubine?" Shangguan Linglan sighed faintly and continued to drink the tea. She leaned against the window leisurely and slightly narrowed her eyes. Suddenly, she saw an acquaintance. "Why is Jing Lang here as well? Is he here to look for you?" Shangguan Linglan blinked and turned to look at Fang Zicheng. "What? Who's here?" Before Fang Zicheng could speak, he heard Jing Yu suddenly jump up and exclaim in horror. "Young Master Jing Lang of the Jing clan," said Shangguan Linglan, blinking. "Shit! Quick! Let's go!" Jing Yu was like a mouse that had seen a cat. She scurried around, grabbed Shangguan Linglan's hand, and rushed out of the private room at lightning speed. She didn't even go through the main door of the Jinyan restaurant and slipped out of the side door. When Jing Lang walked into the private room, he saw Fang Zicheng sitting on one side with a sluggish look on his face. There was no one else around him. Jing Lang was stunned. He looked at Fang Zicheng and said, "Why are you alone? Where are Jing Yu and the others?" "Come, let's not talk about Jing Yu for now. Let's talk about you." Fang Zicheng smiled brightly at Jing Lang and said, "What did you do to Jing Yu that made her run away as soon as she heard your name? She left?" Jing Lang's face suddenly became gloomy. Fang Zicheng sensed Jing Lang's gloominess at a glance. He stared at Jing Lang in horror and said, "You couldn't have done something to Jing Yu. Shut up. What nonsense are you talking about?" Jing Lang stared at Fang Zicheng coldly and said, "She's not here. I'm leaving." Chapter 104. Hey, why are you leaving me like this, Scram? Jing Yu hugged the chest with one hand and pulled Shangguan Linglan with the other as they ran to her carriage at the back door of Jin Yanlu. Only then did she let out a sigh of relief. She patted her beating heart and sighed in her heart that she had escaped a disaster. "Jing Yu, you better tell me the truth. What secrets do you have with Jing Lang? Is it worth it to run away as soon as you hear his name?" Shangguan Linglan caught his breath and stared at Jing Yu as he spoke. It's a long story." Jing Yu let out a dispirited sigh and said, "I'll tell you next time. Just remember, if anyone has any connection to the father and son of Jing Lang sees them, you must remind me so that I can be ready to run away at any time." Shangguan Linglan paused slightly and looked at Jing Yu with a frown. "You owe them money?" Go. "I think they are the kind of people who owe money and don't pay it back." Jing Yu stared at Shangguan Linglan with disdain as she spoke. Shangguan Linglan replied with a serious expression. Jing Yu raised her fist and was about to hit Shangguan Linglan when she was stopped by a voice behind her. "Imperial concubine, the 9th emperor sent this subordinate to take you back to the Fu." Jing Yu paused slightly and turned around in fear. She shouted, "When did you get here?" "This subordinate has been standing here the entire time." Xing Er silently lowered his head. "I didn't notice at all." Jing Yu chuckled and patted Shangguan Linglan's shoulder. See you tomorrow. I'm going back first. And remember to tell me why next time. Shangguan Linglan said as he watched Jing Yu get into the carriage. I know. Jing Yu replied loudly. She turned around and got into the carriage, heading back to the Wangfu. Jing Yu rushed to Xiao Chen's study as soon as she returned to the Wangfu. The person hadn't arrived yet, but her voice had arrived first. The shouting and yelling made the hidden guards around Xiao Chen accustomed to it. Xiao Chen silently raised his head from a pile of documents and watched as Jing Yu happily rushed into his study. She hugged a box and slammed it on his desk. She excitedly said to Xiao Chen, "Guess what's inside?" Money. Xiao Chen looked at Jing Yu expressionlessly. "Ha. I knew you wouldn't guess. Wait. You said it was money." Jing Yu suddenly stopped laughing and stared at Xiao Chen in shock. Xiao Chen nodded indifferently, looking bored. How did you know? Jing Yu blinked and looked at Xiao Chen. She suddenly felt wronged. He actually guessed it. How boring. Not only did I know it was money, I also knew it was Princess Liang's money. Xiao Chen looked at Jing Yu indifferently. How did you know? Could it be? Great. You sent someone to follow me. Jing Yu suddenly raised her eyebrows and glared at Xiao Chen. If I wanted to follow you, I would have done it openly. Xiao Chen removed the box Jing Yu placed on the desk and said indifferently, Your deeds have already spread throughout the imperial city. What else do you think you have to say? Jing Yu was shocked. The power of the masses was indeed strong. It hadn't been long, but the entire imperial city knew about it. Didn't that mean the person in the imperial palace also knew about it? Thinking of this, Jing Yu instantly lost her composure. Jing Yu went forward and pushed it. When she found that it was not locked, she carefully pushed the door open and looked inside. When she saw the dilapidated house and the weeds on the ground, Jing Yu knew that she had found the right place. She suddenly quivered and lowered her breathing. Step by step, she followed the path in her memory and carefully walked inside. When the familiar bamboo forest came into view, Jing Yu suddenly became timid. The man's face clearly replayed in her mind like a magic spell, which made Jing Yu's heart tremble uncontrollably. She felt that she should not have done this. Chapter 106. Just as Jing Yu paused, she suddenly heard movement behind her. Her heart skipped a beat and she immediately rolled into the grass to hide. Squatting in the distance, she quietly watched as a pair of footsteps slowly approached. The footsteps were so light that it was as though the footsteps were not on the grass at all. How deep must one's inner strength be to be able to reach such a level? Jing Yu lowered her body even further, afraid that if she was discovered, she would be dismembered in the next second. The pair of black shoes slowly walked past Jing Yu and into the pond. Jing Yu watched the person's back but could not see the person's face clearly. Looking at the figure, it was obviously a man dressed in black, and the way he walked was like a ghost. Jing Yu's eyes turned and she slowly stood up. Carefully, she followed the person's footsteps into the pond but did not dare to get too close. She could only squint her eyes and observe the person's movements from afar. The light veil was lifted and Jing Yu saw a person taking off his clothes. Strange, the person taking off his clothes clearly had black hair. Jing Yu looked suspiciously at the light veil that was being blown up by the wind and hanging on the branches of the bamboo leaves. She could clearly see the movements inside the pond. The man who was slowly taking off his outer clothes had a strong and muscular body and did not look any different. With his back facing Jing Yu suspected that there were two people, right? Just as Jing Yu was letting her imagination run wild, the man who had taken off his outer clothes slowly stepped into the dark green pond. After the man stepped into the pond, Jing Yu could clearly see the man's originally black hair slowly change. The black hair was actually turning white at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Damn! It's a mutation! Jing Yu's heart was trembling violently. She covered her mouth tightly and did not allow herself to make a single sound. She continued to watch with wide eyes as the man's bronze skin gradually turned into patches of white spots. The protruding blood vessels began to squirm, and the man's entire body began to tremble. He let out an unbearable groan. The black-clothed man stood quietly at the side. He didn't move at all. The small side of his face was expressionless. It seemed that he was already used to it. It was just like watching a zombie movie. Jingyu watched as the blood vessels in the man's body started to spread upwards bit by bit. When they finally reached his neck, she could clearly see that the blood vessels had turned black and were wriggling densely into his scalp and cheeks. Jingyu did not dare to imagine how painful it would be. Just looking at it, Jingyu felt uncomfortable all over. Jingyu silently swallowed her saliva. Her body carefully moved backward, thinking that she should quickly retreat before she was discovered. However, just as Jingyu retreated a few steps, she suddenly felt a cold, murderous intent piercing towards her from behind. That aura seemed to make Jingyu feel an indescribable fear. It was as if this attack was a sure kill and she would not be able to dodge it. But how could she not dodge it? Jingyu's entire body trembled violently. She was in an unimaginably strange position. She almost spun her entire waist and fiercely twisted to the side. She saw with her own eyes that the green dagger had brushed past her neck. Tisk! The dagger stabbed into the ground. Before Jingyu could even take a breath, she saw a black shadow claw towards her neck. Jingyu bent her body and narrowly dodged it. Without any hesitation, she ran out like a madwoman. Just as she ran 2 steps, she suddenly saw countless black shadows descending from above. Chapter 107. Jingyu bent her body and narrowly dodged it. Without any hesitation, she ran out like a madwoman. She had only taken 2 steps when she suddenly saw countless black shadows descending from above. Fuck! There's no end to this. Jingyu was shocked. Why did so many masked men in black suddenly appear? The men in black surrounded Jingyu from all directions. It was obvious that they wanted to keep Jingyu here. Jingyu didn't have a single weapon in her hands, so she couldn't fight back. She could only dodge and roll until her body was covered in dirt. However, these men in black didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. Hiss! Jingyu felt a sharp pain in her arm. A dagger had cut her. Jingyu rolled and knelt on the ground on one knee. She looked at her injured arm, which was already bleeding. Jingyu's eyes slowly filled with anger. Wasn't it just a person? Damn it! Was there a need to be so ruthless? They wanted to kill her without even saying a word. Did they really think she was easy to bully? Jingyu's eyes flashed. She casually picked up a withered bamboo pole from the side. Her eyes slowly turned cold. She suddenly jumped up and attacked the masked men in black. Using the knives in their hands, she sharpened the bamboo pole into a sharp bayonet. Every move she made was ruthless, stabbing at the weak points of the enemy. Jingyu's eyes were tainted with a bloodthirsty light. As she turned around, something seemed to be beating restlessly in her body. Her pitch-black eyes began to change color. A dark green light flashed in her eyes, so fast that it was hard to detect. Jingyu threw the bamboo pole in her hand with all her might. She suppressed the abnormal breathing in her chest and ran out of the bamboo forest without looking back. Her mind was temporarily in a mess. An indescribable feeling made Jingyu feel suffocated. What's going on? I feel like I'm going to die. Jingyu's breathing became more and more rapid. The color of her eyes kept changing. One moment it was black, and the next moment it was green. Jingyu used all her strength to rush out of the courtyard. She panicked and ran out of the alley. Her stumbling footsteps and her body was covered in dirt. She looked like a lunatic who had escaped from somewhere. Jingyu's legs gave way and she knelt on the ground. She curled up on the ground and looked sideways at her injured arm. Dark black blood was flowing out. No wonder she was poisoned. Jingyu's eyes finally fixed on the green. A suffocating feeling came from her chest. Jingyu suddenly widened her eyes, and her heart thumped hard. All the strength in her body slowly dissipated, and her green eyes slowly faded. When she closed her eyes, they turned pitch black. She wouldn't die if she didn't ask for it. Curiosity didn't just kill the cat, it killed the person too. Jingyu regretted it so much that her intestines turned green. Her last bit of consciousness was dissipating. She seemed to hear Xing Er's voice in her ears, but Jingyu couldn't distinguish it anymore. Her thoughts were completely stuck on regret and she fell into an endless darkness. In the darkness, the white hair swayed in front of her eyes again and again. It was like a curse. The white hair floated and slowly approached her, wrapping around her neck. Jingyu struggled to resist the white hair, but she realized that she couldn't exert any strength. No, if she didn't want to die. She had already died once. Ah! Jingyu's body trembled and she sat up. Her vision was dizzy and she fell down again. The chaotic scene in front of her gradually cleared up. Jingyu was slightly startled by the familiar curtains. She slowly let out a sigh of relief. She didn't die. Chapter 108. Imperial Concubine. Imperial Concubine, you're awake? Yin Xiao's voice sounded beside her ear. Jingyu slowly turned her head and looked over. When she saw Yin Xiao's tear-filled eyes, she smiled bitterly and sighed. Finally, she could feel the sensation in her body. What happened to me? Jingyu raised her hand and wanted to rub the space between her eyebrows. However, she realized that her hand didn't seem to be there. She was so shocked that her heart skipped a beat. She turned her head and realized that her entire arm was bandaged. Jingyu looked at the bandage speechlessly. She didn't even need to think to know that it was Xiaoqin, that perverted fellow, who could bandage her small wound like this. Imperial Concubine, you've been unconscious for 3 days. Yin Xiao's eyes turned red again. She looked at Jingyu with teary eyes and said, "The 9th Emperor said that you were poisoned. This servant thought that you would never wake up again. Woo, aren't I awake now? Don't cry." Jingyu was shocked by Yin Xiao's words. She was actually unconscious for 3 days. This poison was really overbearing. Who brought me back? Jingyu sat up while holding her arm and asked Yin Xiao. It was the 9th Emperor's. Yin Xiao blinked and said, "The 9th Emperor's carried Imperial Concubine all the way back." Jingyu was instantly stunned. This wasn't right. She had clearly fainted outside. How could she be brought back by Xiaoqin? Jingyu ate the soup that Yin Xiao passed over with a stomach full of questions. She blinked and said, "Where is Xiaoqin?" The 9th Emperors went to the palace. Yin Xiao raised her head and looked at Jingyu and said, "Eh." Jingyu instantly widened her eyes. She looked at Yin Xiao in horror and said, "Xiaoqin actually went to the palace? Did something happen in the palace? This servant doesn't know." Yin Xiao frowned and shook her head. She lowered her head and didn't say anything. Jingyu was slightly stunned. She had known Yin Xiao for so long. How could she not see that Yin Xiao was lying? It was obvious that Yin Xiao was lying right now. "Yin Xiao, are you hiding something from me?" Jingyu put down the bowl in her hand and stared at Yin Xiao with a frown. This servant didn't. Yin Xiao instantly lowered her head nervously. "Yin Xiao?" Jingyu frowned as she called out Yin Xiao's name. Her tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Yin Xiao's heart trembled as she hurriedly said, It's because the Imperial Consort suddenly fainted. 9th Imperial Uncle only entered the palace to take a look." As Yin Xiao's words fell, Jingyu's hand trembled slightly as she pursed her lips. Xiao quickly raised, maybe something happened. Something happened? What's there to misunderstand? Jingyu blinked and waved her hand. "I was just thinking. Why did the Imperial Concubine suddenly faint?" This servant also doesn't know. Yin Xiao sized up Jingyu again. After confirming that Jingyu wasn't angry, she slowly let out a sigh of relief. "Forget it, it's none of my business." Jingyu shrugged and said, "I'm still very hungry. Go and get something for me to eat." "Yes, this servant will do it now." Yin Xiao acknowledged and walked out. Jingyu slowly stood up, dragging her arm that was wrapped in layers of clothes, and walked out of the house. Looking at the bright and beautiful sunlight, she instantly felt a sense of comfort. This was great, she was still alive and well. Chapter 109. Jingyu slowly stood up. She dragged her arm that was wrapped in layers and walked out of the house. Looking at the bright sunlight, she immediately felt a sense of comfort. Great, she was still alive and well. But that damned strange man really made Jingyu gnash her teeth in hatred. Wasn't he just relying on having many subordinates? If he had the ability, then come fight me one-on-one. Jingyu stood in front of the door, her expression changing unpredictably. She couldn't get a clear look at that man's face twice, which made Jingyu very unhappy. She really didn't know what was wrong with that man. How did he end up like that? Could it be that he was poisoned? Or was there something wrong with him? Jingyu turned around and entered the house. Looking at the books on the bookshelf, she wondered if there were any books that had records of this. With this thought, Jingyu began to read seriously. Just as she was engrossed in her search, a cold voice sounded from behind her. "What are you looking for?" The sudden voice startled Jingyu so much that she hurriedly turned around. Her eyes widened as she saw Xiaochen standing in front of her, dressed in luxurious clothes. She didn't expect Xiaochen to be so handsome in such luxurious clothes. Xiaochen raised his eyebrows slightly as he looked at Jingyu, his eyes full of questions. "Why did you come back so quickly?" Jingyu said as she looked away. "Nothing happened, so I came back." Xiaochen looked at Jingyu's wrapped arm and said with a frown, "How does your wound feel?" Jingyu looked at Xiaochen with hidden bitterness and said, "I can't feel my entire arm." What? Xiaochen frowned slightly, as if he didn't understand. He had purged all the poison from Jingyu's body, so why couldn't she feel her entire arm? "You're wrapped up so tightly that you'll suffocate to death. What else can you feel?" Jingyu rolled her eyes at Xiaochen and said, "Let go of me. If you don't know how to bandage, get someone else to do it." Jingyu finally relaxed her entire arm as she wished. Looking at the shallow cut on her arm, she felt a burst of fear. It was just a small cut, but it almost took her life. What a tyrannical poison. "I remember that I was poisoned. How did you get the antidote to detoxify me?" Jingyu asked Xiaochen as she looked at her bandaged wound. "It's just a little poison. Do you think it can stop me?" Xiaochen glanced at Jingyu from the corner of his eyes. His narrowed eyes made the corner of Jingyu's mouth twitch. So, the deadly poison that was terrifying to her was just a little poison in Xiaochen's eyes. As expected of the 9th emperors. How domineering. "There's more." Xiaochen coldly narrowed his eyes at Jingyu and said, "Why did you shake off Xing'er that day? What happened to your injury?" This Jingyu nervously straightened her body after being questioned by Xiaochen. If she said that she went to see a man, she reckoned that Xiaochen would strangle her to death in the next second. She was blatantly trying to climb the wall. Jingyu was even more horrified when she thought of that scene. She rolled her eyes and laughed. "It's nothing. Speaking of which, why did you suddenly go to the palace today? What's the matter with the imperial consort fainting?" Jingyu very decisively changed the topic. The imperial consort is pregnant. As expected, Xiaochen was led to change the topic by Jingyu. However, the words that came out of Xiaochen's mouth made Jingyu's eyes widen in shock. She looked at Xiaochen strangely. She didn't expect Fu Ruoqing to be pregnant. Xiaochen must be feeling terrible. After all, she was the one who was betrothed to him before she was born. And now she's having a child with his brother? What a cliché. Chapter 110. Xiaochen, don't be too sad. Jingyu hesitated for a moment before saying, "It's a good thing that the imperial consort is pregnant. You'll have another nephew." "Jingyu, what nonsense are you talking about?" Xiaochen's expression gradually turned cold after hearing Jingyu's words. He looked at Jingyu with an extremely strange gaze. You don't have to be embarrassed. If you're sad, this lady will let you lean on my shoulder." Jingyu patted her shoulder in an imposing manner and looked at Xiaochen with the expression of a good brother. She aborted the child. Xiaochen silently retracted his gaze from Jingyu and decided to ignore Jingyu's completely disjointed thoughts. He spoke faintly and instantly put an end to all the messy thoughts in Jingyu's head. "What? She aborted the child?" Jingyu's eyes widened in shock. She blinked at Xiaochen and said, "She didn't want to give birth to this child? She actually aborted the emperor's child." How impressive! This is also the reason why I entered the palace. Xiaochen closed his eyes and spat out those cold words. Jingyu felt that Xiaochen still had something to say. However, seeing that Xiaochen didn't seem to want to continue speaking, Jingyu naturally wouldn't open her mouth to speak. It will be the Cold Food Festival in 10 days. The eldest princess will come to the palace. You should be prepared. Xiao Chen stood up as he spoke. He glanced at Jingyu and said, recuperate well. You don't have to go to the academy to study these few days. I have a lot of things to do and won't be in the palace often. Jingyu blinked and looked at Xiao Chen. If you have any problems, just look for Xing Er. If you dare to dump him again, this king will definitely get to the bottom of what happened today. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes dangerously as he looked at Jingyu with a heavy warning. No way, no way. Jingyu quickly waved her hands and respectfully sent Xiao Chen out. Her heart was filled with regret. Tell me, why is she so curious? Not only did he almost lose his life, he even made Xiao Chen suspicious. She was currently living under someone else's roof. Jingyu silently climbed onto the soft bed and sighed. She told herself over and over again that if she ever met that monstrous man again, she would definitely chop him into minced meat. To vent the hatred in his heart. The days when she didn't go to school were very carefree. Every day, other than eating, she slept. Jingyu felt that she had probably gained 5 kilograms in these few days. However, this was only Jingyu's feeling. On this day, the sun was shining brightly. Jingyu directed Xing Er to bring a deck chair to the courtyard. She comfortably lay down in the courtyard and basked in the sun. She also had Yin Xiao bring a lot of refreshments and food to the side of the table. She began to enjoy this afternoon to her heart's content. Imperial concubine, don't eat anymore. Yin Xiao looked at Jingyu's non-stop small mouth and instantly frowned as she said, other families' young misses don't dare to eat in order to maintain their figure. Imperial concubine, you are eating so fiercely. What if people make fun of you during the cold food festival? Don't worry, this lady doesn't care. Jingyu said with a smile as she bit into the pastry in her hand. This ancient food was really too delicious. Imperial concubine? Yin Xiao looked at Jingyu with hidden bitterness as she called out. Speaking of which, what is the cold food festival? Why do you all place so much importance on it? Jingyu held the tea and pastries to eat as she blinked and asked Yin Xiao. Chapter 111. Jingyu blinked and asked Yin Xiao as she ate the tea and pastries. Imperial consort, you don't know? Yin Xiao blinked and said, Cold Food Festival is a major festival in Tokyo. Every time it's Cold Food Festival, there will be a ceremony in the Imperial Palace. Every family will go to the cemetery to pay respects to their deceased relatives. There will also be a polo tournament held in the Imperial Horse Track outside the city. Isn't this the Qingming Festival? Jingyu was slightly stunned and her eyes widened. She had left the mountain for so long that she almost forgot to count the days. It seemed that it was already the Qingming Festival. Wasn't it called the Cold Food Festival in ancient times? She learned something new. What's the Qingming Festival? Yin Xiao was slightly stunned and blinked at Jingyu in confusion. I'm just speaking nonsense. Jingyu waved her hands and said with a smile. Imperial consort, during the Cold Food Festival, many important people will go to watch the polo tournament. Imperial consort can't eat anymore. If you get laughed at, you will lose the face of the Wangfu. Yin Xiao looked at Jingyu and said seriously. Jingyu's face instantly darkened. It's the Wangfu's Wangfu again. They can't even let people eat properly. This is the sorrow of having a big family and a big business. But they have a lot of money. All right, she will endure it. Jingyu endured the pain and put down the half-eaten pastry. Seeing Yin Xiao happily take it away, her heart ached. Jingyu watched Yin Xiao leave and immediately saw Xing Er slowly walking over. She blinked slightly. Didn't this fellow not enter the court without being summoned? Why did he walk over by himself? Jingyu saw Xing Er standing in front of her. Imperial consort, Miss Shangguan and Miss Ning request an audience. Xing Er had a poker face and said with his eyes lowered, they're here. Quickly invite them in. Jingyu's eyes instantly lit up. She was already tired of staying in the Wangfu all day. Shangguan Linglan and Ning Xiangyuan's arrival made Jingyu, who had just been deprived of food, regain her vitality. Jingyu. When Shangguan Linglan saw Jingyu, he instantly rushed over. Seeing Jingyu's arm wrapped in a white cloth, his eyes were filled with worry. Why are you so useless? How could you be attacked in broad daylight? Why don't you bring a bodyguard with you? The moment Shangguan Linglan opened his mouth, it was a series of reproachful words. His eyes were filled with worry, but he didn't know how to comfort her. However, these words that were clearly reproachful made Jing Yu's heart feel slightly warm. She revealed a bright smile and said, "Yes, yes, yes, Miss Shangguan. The next time I go out, I will definitely bring 1,000 elite soldiers to escort me." Yeah. Ning Xiangyuan looked at Jing Yu reproachfully and said, "You're already injured, why are you still so talkative? How is 1,000 enough? I'll give you 10,000. Shangguan Linglan waved his hand and said, "If you bring 10,000 elite soldiers out on the streets, the two of us will probably see you on the guillotine tomorrow." Shangguan Linglan looked at Jing Yu seriously and said. Jing Yu and Ning Xiangyuan looked at Shangguan Linglan with their mouths agape. "Lanlan, you can't wait to send me on my way?" Jing Yu looked at Shangguan Linglan with teary eyes, looking like an abandoned wife. "All right, so don't be so talkative." Shangguan Linglan rubbed his arms and raised his hand to pinch Jing Yu's cheek and said, "I haven't seen you for a few days. Why do I feel like you've gained weight?" "Really? Really? I've become plump." Jing Yu rubbed her face and said. Chapter 112. "Really? Really? I'm plump now," Jing Yu said as she rubbed her face. "Ye is so shameless." Ning Xiangyuan blushed slightly as she glared at Jing Yu. Shangguan Linglan also began to tease her. Instantly, the courtyard was filled with laughter. Shangguan Linglan wanted to see Jing Yu's 2 gray wolves, and Jing Yu naturally agreed. Who would have thought that these 2 big guys would be so popular? However, Ning Xiangyuan was still afraid of these 2 big guys, so she could only wait for Jing Yu to return. Jing Yu naturally wouldn't make things difficult for Ning Xiangyuan. She happily brought Shangguan Linglan to the side courtyard. Shangguan Linglan touched Yin Jian's body and said, "Why do I feel like your gray wolf has gotten fatter too?" Heavens! They really did get fatter. Jing Yu touched Yin Jian's legs in horror. The originally strong muscles were already starting to shrink. If this continued, these 2 ferocious beasts would really become pets. No, she definitely couldn't let such a terrifying thing happen. Jing Yu immediately called Xing Er in and told him to tell Xiao Chen to see if it was possible to leave the city and release these 2 fellows back on the mountain. Keeping them in captivity in the prince's estate wasn't a good idea. Xing Er obeyed and left. Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan played with Yin Jian and Yin Feng. Ning Xiangyuan sat in place and played with the fallen leaf in her hand. Just as she was wondering why Jing Yu and the others hadn't returned yet, she heard Yin Xiao's greeting from the courtyard entrance. This servant pays her respects to the 9th emperors. The 9th emperors? Ning Xiangyuan immediately stood up and turned to look. Xiao Qin, dressed in an ink-black robe, slowly walked into the courtyard. Xing Yi and Xing Er followed behind him. The handsome man practically stole everyone's attention at first glance. "Greetings to the 9th emperors." Ning Xiangyuan hurriedly looked down at her own clothes and quickly walked up to greet him. Xiao Chen replied faintly. He didn't even look at Ning Xiangyuan and turned to walk to the side courtyard. "The 9th emperors." Ning Xiangyuan watched the 9th emperors leave and her heart skipped a beat. She raised her voice and called out to Xiao Chen. She saw that Xiao Chen really stopped and turned to look at her. Those deep eyes were staring straight at her. She couldn't help but wish that this man only had eyes for her. "I am Ye's good friend. My name is Ning Xiangyuan." Ning Xiangyuan looked nervously at Xiao Chen and said with a red face. Xiao Chen lowered his gaze and replied faintly. He was about to walk away again. "Has Ye mentioned me before?" Ning Xiangyuan asked carefully as she looked at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen frowned when he heard this. He turned around and stared at Ning Xiangyuan. He said coldly, "Is it that important?" No, I didn't mean it that way." Ning Xiangyuan looked at Xiao Chen's frown and thought that Xiao Chen was angry. She instantly became nervous. She wanted to explain, but she didn't know what she had said wrong. She put on a pitiful look. "Xiao Chen, what are you doing?" Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan walked out and saw the 2 of them. Jing Yu immediately walked over. She was angry when she saw that Ning Xiangyuan looked like she was being bullied. This is my friend. You said that you could bring people into the residence. Don't scare her. Jingyu glared at Xiaochen unhappily. Chapter 113. This is my friend. Last time, you said you could bring people into the residence. Don't scare her. Jingyu glared at Xiaochen with dissatisfaction. Xiaochen silently glanced at Jingyu, then glanced at Ning Xiangyuan, who was beside Jingyu. He helplessly pursed his lips and said, I didn't mean it. When Xiaochen finished speaking, Ning Xiangyuan's eyes widened in disbelief. Was the 9th Emperor's apologizing to her just now? And the 9th Emperor's actually called himself me. Such a huge impact caused Ning Xiangyuan to be stunned for a long time, unable to regain her senses. I only came to tell you that I will make arrangements for Grey Wolf. As for the details, come to my study later. I won't disturb you. Xiaochen gently raised his hand and rubbed Jingyu's head. That gentle action completely petrified Shangguan Linglan and Ning Xiangyuan. Got it. Jingyu disdainfully avoided Xiaochen's hand. Every time Xiaochen treated her like this, she would feel like a small animal. The corner of Xiaochen's mouth twitched, then he turned and left. When Xiaochen's figure disappeared, Ning Xiangyuan and Shangguan Linglan were still staring blankly at the empty courtyard door. Jingyu rolled her eyes and patted their shoulders. Come back to your senses. Jingyu, tell us honestly. How did you capture the 9th Emperor's heart? Shangguan Linglan excitedly hugged Jingyu's shoulders and asked. The 9th Emperor's is so gentle. Ning Xiangyuan's cheeks blushed slightly. You two love-struck fools. Jingyu pinched their cheeks and said with a smile, Do you want to see Xiaochen every day? Come, take a look, 100 taels. Give me the money. I'll make Xiaochen sit there every day for you to see. A woman's heart is the most vicious. Shangguan Linglan's face darkened as he glared at Jingyu. But I don't have that much money. Can you make it cheaper? Ning Xiangyuan looked troubled. Huh, Yuan, you really took it seriously. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan burst into laughter. Both of them made fun of Ning Xiangyuan, and the courtyard was filled with jubilation. The three of them talked about the cold food festival for a while more before leaving. Jingyu, rest well. We'll meet again during the cold food festival, Shangguan Linglan said as he patted Jingyu's shoulder. Yeah, we'll be leaving first. Do you want to say goodbye to the 9th Emperors? Ning Xiangyuan slightly tightened her grip on the handkerchief in her hand and frowned slightly as she looked at Jingyu and asked. No need. He's always appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Who knows where he went? Jingyu rolled her eyes and said, I'll let Xing'er send you guys out of the residence. Yeah, you're so lucky to be able to marry such a handsome and gentle man like the 9th Emperor's. Ning Xiangyuan's eyes were filled with envy. Forget it. Jingyu waved her hand and said, Have you forgotten how the previous imperial concubines died? They all died the day before the wedding. Xiaochen and I haven't gotten married yet. Who knows if we'll really end up like the previous imperial concubines on that day. Jingyu's hair stood on end as she said this. She was already wondering if she should quickly run away before the wedding. What nonsense are you talking about? Shangguan Linglan and Ning Xiangyuan's expressions both changed. They clearly thought of this as well. They were in the imperial city and had personally seen the corpses being carried out. This wasn't a rumor, but it was more or less exaggerated by those women. Chapter 114. Jingyu, I have asked my elder brother about this matter. He said that there was an imperial concubine who died on their wedding night, but it wasn't a strange death. Instead, it was an assassination attempt. Furthermore, there were 4 people who were assassinated. I don't know why this rumor started to spread. Shangguan Linglan looked at Jingyu with a serious expression. What about the others? How did they die? Jingyu was slightly stunned. This was the first time she had heard of such a thing. The other women all committed suicide. Shangguan Linglan sighed slightly and said, Those young ladies were forced by their parents to marry the 9th Emperors. They were probably frightened by the rumors, so they committed suicide. As time passed, the rumors became more and more bizarre. People started to say that the 9th Emperor's was the incarnation of a demon. So that's how it is. Jing Yu suddenly understood and widened her eyes. After that, no other women were willing to marry the ninth empress. There were also rumors that people who saw the ninth emperor's face were possessed, or that people who touched the ninth emperors died mysteriously. In short, after that, the ninth emperors became extremely mysterious and revered, Shangguan Linglan said with pursed lips. That's right. In the past, we didn't even dare to look at the ninth emperors. If it weren't for you, Jingyu, we wouldn't have known that this was the true appearance of the ninth emperors, Ning Xiangyuan said with a slight smile as she looked at Jingyu. These rumors are still somewhat controlled in the imperial city. Because the imperial family is here, many people don't dare to talk about it. Perhaps it's because the ninth emperor's influence is too great. However, among the commoners, there is still a fear of the ninth emperors. When the rumors spread to the outside world, I don't know how ugly these rumors were, Shangguan Linglan said. Xiao Chenhe? His influence is too great? Jing Yu's mouth slightly stiffened. She silently thought that in this prince's palace, there were only a few servants. The only powerful ones were Xing Yi and Xing Er. Where was their influence? I'm not sure either. My father told me not to provoke anyone but the ninth emperors. I don't know the specifics. Shangguan Linglan slightly spread his hands and said, however, seeing how well the ninth emperors treats you, I'm relieved. If the ninth emperors wants to protect you, even if you don't have any status or family background, no one will dare to look down on you. Huh. What a joke, I need him to protect me? Ha, I forgot about that. Shangguan Linglan raised his head and laughed. As the three of them were talking, Xing Yi suddenly appeared in front of the three of them. He bowed slightly and said, Imperial concubine, Master invites you to the study. He has something to discuss. Ugh. Jing Yu slightly frowned and looked at Xing Yi before turning to bid farewell to Shangguan Linglan and Ning Xiangyun. She had Xing Er send the two of them out of the palace. Jing Yu then turned and walked towards Xiao Chen's study. However, just as she approached the study, Jing Yu's sharp ears immediately heard the faint sounds of discussion coming from inside. Jing Yu instantly stopped in her tracks. She tilted her head slightly and asked Xing Yi curiously, who's inside? The Prime Minister's first master, Jing Zhan, is in the study. Xing Yi was slightly stunned and pursed his lips. What? Jing Yu suddenly took a step back. She didn't know what was going on as she looked at the tightly shut door. She suddenly became timid and frowned deeply. Without thinking, she turned and left. Xing Yi hurriedly raised his voice to stop Jing Yu and said, Imperial concubine, don't you want to know what they're talking about? Jing Yu bit her lips. She didn't want to know. Chapter 115. I don't want to know. Jing Yu bit her lip. She didn't want to know. Imperial consort, come with me. There's a compartment here. You can see the people inside, but they can't see you. Xing Yi turned to look at Jing Yu. He turned and climbed in through the window. Jing Yu stayed where she was and looked at the open window. Her heart was conflicted. In the end, Jing Yu let out a long sigh and still entered the room. She carefully stuck to the screen and looked through the peephole. She saw the scene in the study. The first thing she saw was Xiao Chen's unchanging face. He looked so indifferent. She didn't know what could make his expression change so much. Jing Yu pursed her lips and turned her eyes to the other side. A slightly old and resolute face came into view. Jing Yu had seen him before. It was the first master of the Prime Minister's residence, Jing Zhan. At this moment, his brows were deeply furrowed, as if he was worried about something difficult to solve. Jing Yu didn't know if it was because of her heart, but when she saw Jing Zhan on the street that day, Jing Yu only felt that this man was somewhat pitiful. However, seeing him today and seeing him in the wheelchair, she suddenly felt her heart ache. Although this feeling of heartache only flashed for a moment, it still made Jing Yu's eyes light up. Actually, she was still looking forward to it. She was looking forward to having a family. Jing Yu slightly lowered her eyes and tightly pursed her lips. All kinds of emotions and thoughts rolled through her eyes. Ninth Emperors, what do you think of what I said? Jing Zhan opened his mouth to speak and looked at Xiao Chen. Has First Master Jing truly finished his preparations? Xiao Chen looked at Jing Zhan with narrowed eyes. Have you decided to take back the position of the head of household? Yes. Jing Zhan's face was resolute. Looking at his bright and expressive black eyes, one could tell that this person back then must have been a man that no one could ignore. Even though he looked old, it wasn't hard to see that he had been handsome back then. This king doesn't understand. You've stayed out of all the disputes for more than 10 years. Why did you decide to take back the position of patriarch at this moment? Xiao Chen's mouth twitched slightly, and his eyes were full of scrutiny. How could you not know the 9th empress? Jing Zhan pursed his lips into a smile. Jing Yu, he has returned. Jing Zhan's words were slightly hoarse. When Jing Yu, who was listening intently, suddenly heard her name, she trembled. She held her breath and quietly listened to the conversation between the two. I've been searching for her for 14 years, but I haven't been able to find any news about her. At one point I thought that she had already died. Jing Zhan sighed softly and said, but there's always been a stubborn thought in his heart that he's unwilling to admit. That's why he's always been restraining the Prime Minister's estate. Is this the reason why you moved out of the Prime Minister's residence but didn't move out of the imperial city? Xiao Chen's heart stirred slightly as he asked with a frown. Yes, I had a glimmer of hope that she would grow up and come back to find out about her past. But now that she's returned, she doesn't recognize me as her father. Jing Zhan's words were filled with pain. He gritted his teeth and said, it's fine. As long as I know that she's alive and well, even if I can't see her, I'll be satisfied. 9th Emperors, today I've come to ask you for help. It's not for myself, it's for Jingyu. Jing Zhan turned his head and looked steadily at Xiao Chen. I want to take back the position of patriarch and control the Prime Minister's estate. In the future, the Prime Minister's estate will be Jing Yu's backer. No matter what she does, I will pave the way for her. She doesn't recognize you as her father. Why do you have to do this for her? Xiao Chen said indifferently as he lowered his eyes. Chapter 116. Even if she doesn't acknowledge me, I only have this one daughter in this lifetime. Consider it as atonement for the mistakes I have committed. Jing Zhan smiled bitterly. I gave birth to a child but didn't raise her, leaving her to fend for herself outside for 14 years. This is a heinous crime. Let me use the rest of my life to ensure her safety. Jing Yu bit her lips tightly, not allowing herself to make the slightest sound. Jing Zhan's words were still in her ears, but her silent heart felt waves of sour pain. She thought that she could really remain unmoved and unmoved. But when she heard these words, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Imperial concubine? Xing Yi looked at Jing Yu's back view with her head lowered, slightly pursing his lips as he called out. Let's go. Jing Yu slowly turned around. Her lowered head prevented others from seeing the expression on Jing Yu's face. Xing Yi was slightly stunned as he watched Jing Yu leave through the window. He didn't know what kind of mentality he had after listening to everything. Jing Yu walked back to her own courtyard and laid on the bed with her head raised. She stared at the bed frame with her pitch-black eyes without moving at all. All kinds of thoughts were surging in her heart. Jing Yu didn't know what she was feeling as Jing Zhan's words echoed in her ears. Xiao Chen walked in and saw Jing Yu in such a state. He waved his hand to dismiss the worried Yin Xiao and walked forward to sit beside Jing Yu. He lowered his head to look at Jing Yu's open eyes and raised his hand to lightly touch Jing Yu's cheek. Jing Yu closed her eyes and opened them to look at Xiao Chen as she asked. And he left. Xiao Chen nodded and took out a bottle of ointment. I heard that you were injured, so I sent some ointment. Jing Yu sat up and stared at the ointment in Xiao Chen's hand. She hesitated for a moment before reaching out to take it. Feeling the warmth of the ointment, she suddenly felt as if she was holding a pair of warm hands that wrapped around her. That kind of warmth was something she had never experienced before. She told herself time and time again that she couldn't think about it, time and time again that she had to reject it. She would rather hope that her father had abandoned her, that he really didn't want her, and not out of helplessness and pity. The current situation caused Jing Yu to fall into a dilemma. Xiao Chen, will you help him? Jing Yu asked as she tightly held the bottle in her hand. Xiao Chen slowly nodded. If the Prime Minister's residence can be used by me, Xiao Jingran will have one less helper. Why not? Jing Yu pursed her lips. She didn't know about the matters of the imperial family, But she knew that Xiao Chen and Xiao Jingran were rivals. Even if I don't help him, he can still take back the position of the head of the household. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and said, Jing Zhan's ability can't be underestimated, not to mention that there is also Jing Lang, who is in charge of the 3 armies. However, with my help, he can take back the position of the patriarch as quickly as possible without any repercussions. What do you mean? Jing Yu frowned slightly. Jing Zhan has been silent for 14 years, and his legs have a chronic illness. There will definitely be elders in the household who won't accept it. Second Master will also use this as an excuse to suppress him. If Jing Zhan wants to stabilize his position, how can he do it without 3 to 5 years? If this king comes out to support him, who would dare to say anything? Xiao Chen smiled arrogantly and disdainfully. How arrogant? Jing Yu looked speechlessly at Xiao Chen. She was already familiar with his personality. She frowned slightly and said, I heard that Jing Zhan's legs used to be fine. How did he suddenly become disabled? Chapter 117. Jing Yu looked at Xiao Chen speechlessly. She was already familiar with his temperament. She frowned slightly and said, I heard that Jing Zhan's legs used to be fine. How did he suddenly become disabled? You don't know? Xiao Chen frowned slightly as he looked at Jing Yu. What? Jing Yu shook her head to show that she didn't know. Back then, after Jing Zhan escaped into the Roman forest with his wife and child, he was captured by his family. Later, Jing Zhan wanted to escape the imperial city countless times to find his wife and child. His father was the current prime minister, Jing Tingyi. In a fit of anger, he crippled Jing Zhan's legs. It was also after that Jing Zhan left the prime minister's manor. What? Jing Yu's entire body trembled. Her eyes widened as she looked at Xiao Chen with disbelief. The outside world said that Jing Zhan accidentally injured his legs in the Roman forest. In fact, that's not the case. It's precisely because of this that Jing Tingyi calmed down and realized his mistake. That's why he has always been very protective of Jing Zhan. Perhaps it's to make up for his mistakes. Xiao Chen frowned. However, Jing Zhan didn't benefit from it. After leaving the prime minister's manor, he disappeared for half a month. The time for treatment of his crippled legs has already passed. There's no way to treat them anymore, so he ended up with a lifelong disability. Xiao Chen's voice was calm. Jing Yu's heart was not calm at all. So that's how Jing Zhan came back. He wanted to look for me, but because of that, my father broke his legs. How cruel. But why can't the Jing family tolerate us? Jing Yu's voice was trembling as she looked up at Xiao Chen. I don't know the specifics. Xiao Chen looked at Jing Yu's expression and his heart shook slightly. He nodded and said, it seems that the Jing family's grandmother said something. She can't tolerate your mother. Even after you were born, she can't tolerate you. That's why she expelled you. Just because she said it, she forced a family to break up and die? Jing Yu sneered. An indescribable anger slowly rose in her body. This is the family. Xiao Chen raised his hand and put it around Jing Yu's waist. He raised his hand and gently stroked her hair. Jing Yu closed her eyes slightly and leaned on Xiao Chen's shoulder. Jing Yu didn't say anything for a few days. No one knew what she was doing. Jing Yu? In the blink of an eye. Jing. Xiao Chen lay on the bed and narrowed his eyes. He watched as Jing Yu bounced up and down. She was choosing what to wear today. She didn't look as frustrated as she did a few days ago. She was humming a little song and seemed to be in a good mood. Or this one. Xiao Chen was indifferent. I'll take this one, Jing Yu said as she looked at the azure tunic. No, the skirt is too long. If I step on it, it will break. Jing Yu decisively tossed the clothes aside and began to choose again. In the end, she set her eyes on a dark red high-collared riding suit with a black border. The totem was outlined by golden threads and looked very noble. I'll take this one. Jing Yu quickly put it on. She looked at herself in the bronze mirror and nodded with satisfaction. She turned to look at Xiao Chen, who was still lying on the bed expressionlessly, and said, What are you looking at? Get up. Chapter 118. What are you looking at? It's time to get up. Jingyu, if you don't want to see the Jing father and son, you can stay in the palace. You don't have to force yourself. Xiaochen slowly stood up and put on his robes. Who said I don't want to see them? Jingyu rolled her eyes and looked at Xiaochen with disdain. She turned and walked out of the room. She called for Yin Xiao to help her wash up. When she heard Yin Xiao say that there would be a polo match today, Jingyu had Yin Xiao comb her hair neatly. When Jingyu finished washing up, Xiaochen also finished tidying up. He looked at Jingyu, who looked different today. He frowned slightly and said, "There's still a ceremony in the palace. Let Xing Heir take you to the horse track first. I'll be there soon." Jingyu replied cheerfully. After eating breakfast with Xiaochen, they parted ways in front of the palace. Jingyu lay in the carriage and thought for a moment. She decided to go find Shangguan Linglan and Ning Xiangyuan first. She had Xing Heir turn around. Let's go to the general's residence first. Jingyu walked towards the general's residence. When Jingyu stood in front of the gate, she looked at the solemn gate. Her eyes were filled with amazement. Look at the 3 words, general's residence, written in flamboyant calligraphy. Jingyu clicked her tongue inside. Just by looking at the gate, she could feel the majestic aura. Just as Jingyu was looking at the gate, a figure suddenly came from the side. Jingyu was startled. She turned her head and saw a tall and sturdy man striding over. He was wearing soft armor. Jingyu was stunned. She looked at the man in front of her. He had an extraordinary bearing. He was wearing military armor. Looking at the sword at his waist, he should have a high status. If Jingyu's analysis was correct, this person should be Shangguan Linglan's older brother. I'm here to... Jingyu smiled and was about to speak. Jingyu. Before Jingyu could speak, she was interrupted by a surprised voice. Jingyu turned her head and saw Shangguan Linglan running over to Jingyu. Without saying a word, he pulled Jingyu into the carriage. Quick, let's go. Shangguan Linglan pushed Jingyu into the carriage. Jingyu was shocked by Shangguan Linglan's actions. She frowned and asked, "What's wrong?" "Third brother, it's best if you don't go in. Father is teaching fifth brother a lesson. He's teaching big brother, second brother, and fourth brother a lesson as well." Shangguan Linglan stared at the imposing man and said, "Luckily I ran fast. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be able to get out of bed today." What? Fifth brother made the old master angry again? The man's face was filled with fear. Under Jingyu's shocked gaze, he turned around and ran away without looking back. His running speed made Jingyu's jaw drop. Was General Shangguan's reputation really that great? He didn't even see him and he ran away. "Let's go." Shangguan Linglan looked fearfully at the door of the general's residence and hurriedly urged, "Your family is like this every day?" Jingyu was silent for a moment. She looked at the frightened Shangguan Linglan and asked, "Don't mention it." Shangguan Linglan said with a mournful face, "How do you think I got my martial arts? It was all forced out." Cough, cough, cough. Jingyu almost laughed out loud. She coughed a few times and asked, "How many brothers do you have in your family?" Chapter 119. How many older brothers do you have in your family? 6. Shangguan Linglan blinked his eyes and said, "I'm the youngest in my family and the 7th. You really can give birth." Jingyu's mouth twitched as she muttered to herself. After Jingyu picked up Shangguan Linglan, she went to the Ning residence to pick up Ning Xiangyuan as well. The 3 of them rode in the same carriage and headed out of the city. The Imperial Horse Ranch was very spacious outside of the city. It was very grand. "It's really big." Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan stood outside the horse ranch, their eyes filled with amazement. "We're at the horse ranch again." Shangguan Linglan's face was filled with excitement, as if she was eager to give it a try. Just as Jingyu and the others were about to go over, they suddenly saw a few horses slowly approaching from the distance. As the horses slowly approached, they raised a cloud of dust as they galloped past. Cough, cough, cough. Jingyu frowned and waved her hand to block the dust. She couldn't help but frown. What was the meaning of this? Princess Liang's horsemanship is really good. Yen is ashamed of her inferiority. As Jingyu was rehearsing, she saw the people on the horses not far away. It turned out to be Princess Leong and Princess Xiling, as well as Jing Yen and the other young misses of the officials' families. She looked at Princess Leong and exclaimed in amazement, "Of course, this princess knew how to ride a horse when I was 10. Princess Leong raised her chin and said, "Why do I remember that when Princess Leong was 10 years old, you cried a few times because you rode a horse?" Xiling suddenly felt uncomfortable. She glanced at Leong and laughed mockingly. Princess Leong's face turned slightly red. How could she not be angry after being exposed by Xiling? Just as she was about to say something, Jing Yen suddenly shouted, "Isn't this Jing Yu and the young miss of the Shangguan family?" As soon as Jing Yen finished speaking, everyone's gaze was immediately attracted. Princess Leong finally noticed Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan standing not far away. She immediately widened her eyes and anger slowly appeared in her eyes. She said coldly, "So it's you too?" Ning Xiangyuan was puzzled. She frowned and looked at Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan and asked, "You too know Princess Leong?" Jing Yu looked like she was about to cry. How the fuck are they just acquaintances? They're practically mortal enemies. Princess Leong, Princess Xiling, long time no see. Jing Yu raised her head and smiled at the two. Princess Leong snorted coldly. She narrowed her eyes at Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan and said coldly, "It's obvious that you're unruly. This is the Imperial Horse Ranch. Aren't you going to greet me when you see me?" Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan looked at each other and coldness flashed in their eyes. Jing Yu smiled and coughed. She smiled and gave Princess Leong an extremely strange greeting. She dragged out her voice and said, "Greetings, Princess Leong, Princess Xiling." Princess Leong's face darkened. Seeing Jing Yu's greeting, she felt like she was being played. "Princess Leong, I'm just a wild girl from another place. If I've done anything rude, please be magnanimous and don't take offense." Jing Yu stood up before Princess Leong said that she was excused. She actually admitted that she was rude without a care. It was truly hateful and infuriating. "Of course, I won't take offense." Princess Leong gritted her teeth and said. She slightly tightened her grip on the reins as if she suddenly thought of something. Chapter 120. She sneered at Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan and said, "I heard that the two of you are pretty good at horsemanship. I would like to ask for some advice. I'm sure the two of you will do me the honor, right?" "What? When did we say that we are good at horsemanship?" Jing Yu frowned slightly. "What? Could it be that I'm not important enough to compete with you?" Princess Leong narrowed her eyes at Jing Yu, her eyes full of provocation and warning. It's this again. This Princess Leong was exactly the same as her sister, Imperial Consort Fu. She was clearly using her status to suppress others, but she still looked like she was blaming her. This was simply intolerable. "What are you saying, Princess Leong? I'm just afraid that Princess Leong will lose too miserably and blame us." Jing Yu sneered and spat out such arrogant words, causing Princess Xiling and Jing Yen to widen their eyes. What a clever mouth. Before Princess Leong could speak, a cold snort came from behind Jing Yu. Everyone turned around and saw a well-dressed woman walking over with the support of others. The cold expression she had on her face as she looked at Jing Yu was Imperial Consort Fu Ruoqing, who had just arrived. "Greetings, Imperial Consort." Princess Leong and the others hurriedly dismounted and bowed. This consort heard everything just now. Fu Ruoqing stood in front of everyone with a faint smile on her face. "Miss Jing Yu wants to have a horse race with Leong? I didn't want to compete with her. She forced me to do so." Jing Yu shrugged nonchalantly. She turned her eyes to look at Fu Ruoqing. Didn't she just abort the child? Why didn't she look like she had a miscarriage? Since it's a competition, there should naturally be a witness. Fu Ruoqing looked at Jing Yu with a trace of disgust. She didn't care about Jing Yu's words at all and said, "I'm just in the mood. Why don't I be your witness?" "Imperial concubine, this isn't appropriate." Jing Yu frowned and said, "Everyone knows that Princess Leong is your younger sister. If you help Princess Leong, wouldn't it be unfair? How could this consort do such a thing?" Fu Ruoqing frowned as she glared at Jing Yu. I'm not you. How would I know if you know how to do it? Jing Yu shrugged nonchalantly, making Fu Ruoqing angry. This consort feels that Jing Yu is right. Just as Fu Ruoqing was about to defend herself, another voice was heard. Everyone looked up and saw that the Empress had also arrived. Her phoenix coronet and phoenix robe could kill Fu Ruoqing in a matter of seconds. As expected of the Empress. Greetings, Your Majesty. Everyone curtsied. Jing Yu secretly looked at Empress Fei Yaju. Fei Yaju's complexion was clearly much better than the last time she saw her. As expected, the women in the harem needed the emperor's nourishment. Jing Yu secretly laughed in her heart. She glanced at Fu Ruoqing, who was gnashing her teeth, and her mood improved greatly. Why did Your Majesty come so quickly? Could it be that His Majesty also came? Fu Ruoqing slowly smiled as she looked at Fei Yaju. Younger sister, don't look. His Majesty is still in the middle of the ceremony. Because he understands that this consort's body isn't well, he had this consort come first. Fei Yaju said with a flaunting expression. She smiled at Fei Yaju and said, if this consort didn't come, how could I see such an interesting thing? Chapter 121. She smiled at Fei Yaju and said, if I didn't come, how could I see such an interesting thing? The emperor is so good to the empress. Fu Ruoqing's face paled slightly as she laughed dryly. Jing Yu, Leong, I heard about your matter when I came. Fei Yaju glanced at Fu Ruoqing and said, since you want to be fair and just, why don't you let this queen be your judge? This queen is the mother of a country and has nothing to do with you two. What do you think? If the empress is willing to personally come, we naturally have no objections. Jing Yu grinned and said, but since this is a competition, it's only interesting to have a prize. What prize do you want? Fei Yaju turned to look at Jing Yu with a faint smile in her eyes. I'm a person who is very interested in gold and silver. Jing Yu rolled her eyes and said, if I win, I want Princess Leong to give me 20 million taels of gold. What a big appetite. Princess Leong sneered at Jing Yu and said, if you lose, I want you to stand on the horse track and shout 10 times that you're an idiot. You also have to kneel down and kowtow to me. No problem. Jing Yu agreed without thinking. She looked provocatively at Princess Leong and said, but I'm afraid that Princess Leong will go back on her words. Why don't we sign a contract as proof? That's exactly what I was thinking. Princess Leong raised her chin and said. Everyone was stunned as they watched the two sign a contract and sign it. Shangguan Linglan didn't even have time to speak. When he saw Jing Yu's handprint, he immediately pulled Jing Yu to the side in horror and said, are you crazy? Do you know how to ride a horse? I know a little, but I haven't ridden in a long time. Jing Yu shrugged and thought about the last time she rode a horse. It seemed to be when she went to the forest with Xing Er and encountered an assassin. Shangguan Linglan's mouth twitched. He took a deep breath and said, how about I do it for you? What are you talking about? I've already put my handprint. Jing Yu waved her hand to tell Shangguan Linglan not to worry. The servants had already brought a horse over. Everyone stepped onto the stage to watch. Jing Yu looked at the horse. It was a good horse. Jing Yu, be careful. Shangguan Linglan still felt uneasy as she worriedly looked at Jing Yu. Don't worry. Jing Yu naughtily stuck out her tongue and mounted the horse. Her clean and neat movements made everyone's eyes light up. However, the moment she got on the horse, her body swayed a little. She looked like she couldn't sit properly. Shangguan Linglan, who had just calmed down, suddenly became worried. Yaya is too impulsive. Ning Xiangyuan's face was also full of worry. She watched as Jing Yu rode the horse to the starting point. She looked very careful. She didn't look like she was riding a horse at all. Jing Yu's eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. She looked sideways at Princess Leong with a mocking smile. Princess Leong looked at Jing Yu and arrogantly raised her chin. She sneered at Jing Yu and said, don't worry. I won't let you lose too badly. Let me say this to you instead. Jing Yu looked back at Princess Leong with the same arrogance. You have a sharp tongue. I'd like to see how you're going to deal with this later. Princess Leong snorted coldly. Following a guard's shout, Princess Leung didn't stay any longer and galloped out on her horse. Jing Yu forcefully lashed out with her whip, causing the horse to stop for a moment in pain before rushing out. Chapter 122. Shangguan Linglan, who was on the spectator stand, covered his face with his hands. Was this how a horsewhip should be used? He was really afraid that Jing Yu would accidentally fall off her horse. The entire horse track was incomparably large and it would take a long time to circle around it. Just as Jing Yu and Leong's horses galloped out, the emperor and the princes who were participating in the ceremony arrived one after another. The civil and military officials also arrived one after another. When everyone heard about the competition between the two, they immediately became interested. They laughed and said that it would be a warm-up for the horse race. At this time, Jing Yu and Leong had already galloped far away. One could vaguely see their silhouettes. Princess Leong was still far in the lead while Jing Yu was lagging behind. Furthermore, looking at the situation, why was the distance between them getting longer and longer? It seems like the outcome has already been decided. Xiao Yi, who was on the high seat, narrowed his eyes as he watched the two galloping horses galloping in the distance. The horses have not returned yet. Isn't it too early for your majesty to say this? Xiao Chen, who was dressed in a black palace robe with a coiling dragon totem embroidered on it, sat at a slightly lower position beside Xiao Yi. He held a cup of tea in his hand and took a sip as he narrowed his eyes and spoke coldly. Oh, ninth brother has a lot of confidence in your imperial concubine? Xiao Yi narrowed his eyes as he spoke. Xiao Chen's lips moved slightly but he did not speak. He narrowed his eyes and continued to watch the competition below. At this time, the horses of the two racers had already begun to return to the track. Everyone raised their heads in anticipation as they watched the two racers galloping over. Jing Yu slowly narrowed her eyes and looked at Princess Leong, who was in front of her. The corners of her mouth curled up into a cold smile. She bent down and lowered her body even lower. She patted the horse under her and said, "I've let you rest and recharge for so long. Now charge." Jing Yu's words fell and she flicked the whip in her hand. The horse beneath her suddenly sped up and rushed towards the finish line. Heavens! Quickly look, Jing Yu is chasing after them. Shangguan Linglan was so excited that he stood up and pointed at the two on the track. She's catching up. He's catching up. Originally, they thought that the outcome was already decided, but at this time, there was a sudden reversal. Everyone in the stand stood up and shouted excitedly. Even Emperor Xiao Yi was surprised and widened his eyes. Princess Leong naturally noticed the commotion outside. She was slightly startled and turned around to take a look. If she didn't take a look, she wouldn't have known. However, the moment she did, she was shocked. Jing Yu, who had been left behind by a large distance, had actually caught up with her. Damn it! Princess Leong's eyes were filled with anger. Looking at Jing Yu's skillful riding skills, how could she not know how to ride a horse? It was obvious that he was an expert who knew how to ride a horse, yet he pretended that he didn't know how to ride a horse. He really deserved to die. Go! Princess Leong fiercely flicked her whip. In her heart, she thought that no matter what, she couldn't let Jing Yu overtake her. Jing Yu slowly narrowed her eyes and looked at the horse beneath Princess Leong. Because it had used up a lot of energy, it didn't have much energy left to charge forward. However, Jing Yu's horse was different. It had been moving at a constant speed, so now was the best time to charge forward. The distance between the two was quickly closing. When Princess Leong turned her head, Jing Yu's horse had already caught up to Princess Leong's side. Jing Yu slowly turned her head to look at Princess Leong and said with a smile, "I'm sorry, I have to go first." Chapter 123. Jing Yu slowly tilted her head to look at Princess Leong and said with a smile, "My apologies, I'll be leaving first." Princess Leong looked at the horse that was slowly overtaking her and anger rose from her heart. She suddenly raised the horsewhip in her hand and lashed it towards Jing Yu. That action was seen by the surrounding spectators and they all sucked in a breath of cold air as they stared blankly at the horsewhip that Princess Leong lashed out. Jing Yu's expression suddenly sank. She hugged the horse that she was riding and slid to the side. She leaned over and dodged Princess Leong's horsewhip. That difficult dodging action was seen by the crowd and they all widened their eyes in shock. Good. Jingyu abruptly leaped onto the horse and coldly glanced at Princess Leong. Without any hesitation, she urged the horse to charge towards the finish line. That beautiful figure that leaped over the finish line caused Xiao Yi to cheer loudly. He didn't expect that he would be able to see such an exciting horse race today. Xiao Chen watched as Jingyu leaped over the finish line. He slowly released the cup that he had been holding tightly in his hand. However, his gaze towards Princess Leong was cold and deep. Princess Leong, you've lost? Jingyu stood on the horse and looked at Princess Leong, who had leaped over the finish line behind her. Her lips curled into a cold arc as she said, I won't pursue the matter of that whip just now. Just treat it as my apology for playing tricks on you in the restaurant. Today, you'll fulfill your part of the bet and we won't owe each other anything. Who cares about your pity? Princess Leong coldly stared at Jingyu. She leaped off the horse and walked towards the stage with large strides. She knelt on the ground and said, Leong knows that she broke the rules and almost caused Jingyu to fall off the horse. I'm willing to enter the punishment hall to be punished. I ask for your majesty's permission. Jingyu was stunned as she looked at Princess Leong's actions. Her eyes flashed slightly. She didn't expect Princess Leong to be someone who dared to take responsibility for her actions. Xiao Yi frowned slightly as he looked at Fu Ruoqing. Your Majesty, punish those who should be punished. Your Majesty is the ruler of a country. Naturally, you must be fair in your rewards and punishments. Fu Ruoqing's expression changed unpredictably. She narrowed her eyes slightly and said, Forget it, just 10 strikes as a warning. Xiao Yi said with a frown. Thank you, Your Majesty. Princess Leong stood up and turned to look at Jingyu, who had already dismounted from her horse. She sneered and said, I will not let this matter rest. Heh, if you want to die, I won't show you any mercy. Jingyu raised her eyebrows in disdain. Don't forget about my gold. Remember, I don't want anything but gold. Jingyu narrowed her eyes and grinned at Princess Leong. Princess Leong was so angry that her face turned red, but there was nothing she could do. She turned around and followed the guard to the punishment hall. Jingyu slowly raised her head and met Fu Ruoqing's gaze. Fu Ruoqing's cold eyes looked at her, causing Jingyu to tremble violently. Now, he had offended all the people he should have offended. He had even offended them to the point of death. Jingyu, you've really made us have a whole new level of respect for you. Xiao Yi looked at Jingyu with a face full of smiles and said, I didn't think that you would have such good riding skills. Oh, it's nothing. Jingyu shrugged and said, I just rode the horse like a wolf. What? You rode the horse like a wolf? Xiao Yi stared and suddenly laughed loudly. He turned to look at Xiao Chen and said, Ninth brother, your imperial concubine is really interesting. She even knows how to tell jokes to make us happy, ha. Io. Who's making you happy? Chapter 124. Io. Who's trying to make you happy? I'm just telling the truth, okay? Also, why would I want to make you happy? Jingyu was suddenly speechless. Looking at the cheerful Xiao Yi, the corners of her mouth twitched. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly as he waved at Jingyu, indicating for her to come to his side. On the other side, Shangguan Linglan was also waving at Jingyu. Suddenly, Jingyu was confused. Should she go to Xiao Chen's place? Or should she go to Shangguan Linglan's place? Jingyu silently compared the two. If she didn't go to the other party's place, what would the outcome be? In the end, she still went to Xiao Chen's place. She still wanted to stay in the Wangfu for a while, so she could only choose her lover over her friend. How come I didn't know that your horsemanship was so good? Xiao Chen looked at Jingyu obediently sitting beside him. The corners of his mouth softened as he lightly asked. There are many things that you don't know. Jingyu proudly lifted her chin and raised her hand to pour herself a cup of tea. Next up was the long-awaited polo match. Jingyu drank a mouthful of tea and listened to the officials below explaining the rules. Jingyu looked at the live version of the polo match and was amazed. She had seen it on television before. She never thought that she would be able to see it live today. Speaking of which, Jingyu blinked and looked sideways at Xiao Chen and said, "Why aren't you going down to play?" Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes at Jingyu. After staring at Jingyu for a while, he faintly said, "Does this king look like someone who plays polo?" Yes. You're a great master." Jingyu dryly laughed as she poured tea for Xiao Chen. She couldn't help but think to herself, "Do you need to look at the players when playing polo? But if you want to watch, this king doesn't mind going down to play." Xiao Chen looked at Jingyu's expression and his eyes flashed with a faint smile. Jingyu was suddenly shocked. When did her face become so big? She actually managed to invite Xiao Chen. Jingyu looked at Xiao Chen telling Xiao Yi that he would go down to play a few rounds as an opening ball. Xiao Yi was obviously shocked. When Xiao Yi announced this, the entire horse track was in an uproar, all the ladies from the officials' families. His popularity was really unusually high. It's rare for the 9th emperors to be in such a good mood. How about this prince and the 9th emperors play a round together? Xiao Jingran stood up and squinted at Xiao Chen with a faint smile. This king is very happy to have the 2nd prince accompany him. Xiao Chen coldly responded. Although he said he was happy, his face was expressionless. Xiao Chen and Xiao Jingran each went to change into a set of riding clothes. Then, they rode their horses onto the horse track. Jingyu stared at the people below. Their attractiveness wasn't just for show. Listening to the cheers outside the track, it was so enthusiastic that it was about to overturn the horse track. There were 2 teams of people below. One team had red scarves on their arms, while the other team had blue scarves on their arms. Xiao Chen and Xiao Jingran each led one team. Xiao Chen led the red team, while Xiao Jingran led the blue team. Thus, the game began and the polo ball game began. Wow! Jingyu stared with wide eyes. She looked at the horses galloping on the field and the ball rolling under the horses' feet. The 2 teams competed fiercely. Every time the ball was about to be scored, it would be intercepted by the other team. The spectators were all frightened. "Oh my God, is that man a pig?" Jingyu stared at the moment when the ball was about to be scored. Chapter 125. Damn, is that man a pig? Jingyu stared at the moment when the ball was about to be scored. One of the men in Xiao Chen's team actually slipped and the ball was snatched away by the other side. Jingyu was instantly angered to the point of choking. Who should be angry? It's about to go in, it's about to go in. Jingyu suddenly stood up and saw that the ball was snatched away again. Her face turned green and she couldn't sit still any longer. She ran down the high platform. This series of actions attracted the attention of the emperor and the other concubines. They all looked at Jingyu, not knowing what she wanted to do. Why is Jingyu on a horse? Xiao Yi slightly frowned as he looked at Jingyu, who was riding a horse into the field. His eyes widened in shock. She's a woman, why is she competing with a man? Empress Fei Yaju slightly frowned. Everyone had clearly noticed Jingyu and they all started whispering. Jingyu inserted herself into Xiao Chen's team with a club and directly squeezed away the man that she didn't like. Xiao Chen and Xiao Jingran were stunned when they saw Jingyu suddenly appear on the field. "Xiao Chen, you cut off their path of retreat. You guys surround Xiao Jingran, I'll score." Jingyu's lips curled into a devilish smile as she gave this order to everyone without any warning. Xiao Chen's eyes slightly narrowed. Under everyone's shocked and frightened gazes, he slowly replied, "Okay." Heavens, not only did she call the 9th emperor by his name, she even gave an order to the 9th emperor. Most importantly, the 9th emperor actually agreed. Everyone in the team felt slightly dizzy. Seeing that the 9th emperor had obediently followed her orders, they naturally didn't dare to disobey. They followed Jingyu's instructions and swarmed toward Xiao Jingran. Jingyu narrowed her eyes as she looked at the man dribbling the ball. She had clearly seen everything from the stands. Xiao Jingran was the best in this team. Without Xiao Jingran leading the team, Jingyu was confident that she could pass the ball. Handsome. Jingyu turned her horse and blocked the dribbler's path. She smiled like a flower as she called out. The dribbler originally wanted to pass the ball, but he was stunned by Jing Yu's call out. He looked at Jing Yu in confusion and blinked. "Ah? I'm praising you." Jing Yu waved the club in her hand, turned around, and snatched the ball under his club. Laughing loudly, she dribbled the ball and ran away. The man who was blushing because of Jing Yu's words finally reacted. He cursed in a low voice and hurriedly chased after her. Jing Yu nimbly moved the ball in her hand. Her superb dribbling skills made the surrounding spectators cry out in surprise. Xiao Yi, who was sitting high above, was also amazed. He didn't expect Jing Yu to have such a trick up her sleeve. Why is this ball so disobedient? Jing Yu pouted as she moved the ball forward. She glanced sideways at the members of the blue team who were surrounding her from all directions. Her lips curled into a cold arc as she watched them get closer and closer. Finally, just as the ball was about to reach Jing Yu forcefully swung the club in her hand and threw the polo ball far away. Everyone stared at the ball in a daze. Jing Yu forcefully swung her whip and chased after the ball, once again displaying her beautiful riding skills. Xiao Chen urged his horse forward and blocked the members of the blue team who were chasing after the ball. He watched as Jing Yu slid down her whip and swung the club. He watched as the polo ball flew into the net without any obstruction. Jing Yu walked to the gongs and drums and just had to sound them. "However, Xiao Chen, it's too high. I can't hit it." Jing Yu complained as she looked at Xiao Chen. She felt wronged as she looked at the gongs and drums hanging high in the air. Chapter 126. He was simply looking down on her height. Xiao Chen looked at Jing Yu's scrunched-up little face and his lips slowly curled into a smile. He placed his hand on the back of his horse and sat down on Jing Yu's horse. He took the gongs and drums from Jing Yu's hands and raised his hand to sound the gongs and drums of victory. Immediately, the entire racetrack was filled with excited cheers. It's over?" The members of Team Red who were still pestering Xiao Chen finally came back to their senses and turned to look at Jing Yu, who was in Xiao Chen's arms. Their eyes were filled with surprise and smiles. They didn't think that the 9th Imperial Concubine would have such ability. Great. This opening ball has really broadened my horizons." Xiao Yi raised his head and laughed loudly. He looked at Xiao Chen and Jing Yu, who were strolling over, and nodded with a smile. He turned to look at the gloomy Xiao Jingran and said, "Jingran, you should learn more from your 9th emperors." "Yes, your son will definitely learn from the 9th emperors." The corners of Xiao Jingran's lips curled into a smile, and his words sounded like he was gnashing his teeth in anger. Xiao Chen extended his hand and held Jing Yu's hand as they walked up the stairs. When they were halfway up, Jing Yu suddenly grabbed Xiao Chen's hand. Xiao Chen turned his head and looked at Jing Yu suspiciously. Jing Yu carefully looked at Xiao Chen and said, "I want to go over there." Jing Yu said as she pointed in the direction of Shangguan Linglan. Xiao Chen's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction, but he still slowly let go of his hand. He rubbed Jing Yu's head and said indifferently. After receiving permission, Jing Yu happily ran over to Shangguan Linglan and Ning Xiangyuan's side. It really wasn't easy to please the 9th emperors. Jing Yu. Shangguan Linglan saw Jing Yu coming over and immediately pulled Jing Yu's hand excitedly and said, "I want you to teach me how to ride a horse. That polo match just now was simply too beautiful. I want to learn too." Ning Xiangyuan nodded and looked at Jing Yu with admiration and said, "I didn't expect you to have such good riding skills. Quickly teach us." Jing Yu helplessly looked at the two and said, "I really was riding a horse like a wolf. How about, you two give it a try?" Don't hit me, don't hit me. I'm just joking." Jing Yu hurriedly dodged Shangguan Linglan and Ning Xiangyuan's pink fists and said with a smile, "I'll teach you. It's just riding a horse. You must keep your word." Shangguan Linglan and Ning Xiangyuan were instantly happy. They sat down and discussed the time. The polo match suddenly became boring. It was probably because the excitement of the opening match had yet to pass. However, the people on the field attracted Jing Yu's attention. "Who is the leader of the blue team?" Jing Yu asked as she propped up her chin. "It's the 3rd prince, Xiao Xiangqing. He's a brave lord, but he's brave but not smart." Shangguan Linglong pursed his lips and said, this time, he took the initiative to play polo because he wanted to show his face beside the emperor. How many princes are there in the palace? Jing Yu blinked and asked. There are still princes in the palace. The crown prince, Xiao Yuling, has a chronic illness and rarely appears in front of everyone. You've seen the second prince, Xiao Jingran. The second prince is also the biggest competitor for the crown prince position. The third prince is the one I just told you about. There's also the fifth prince, Xiao Jiu, who is stubborn and mischievous. There's also the ninth prince, who is still young and still a child. Chapter 127. Shangguan Linglong shrugged and said. Jing Yu's eyes widened. She knew that there were many princes in the royal family, but she didn't expect there to be so many. Then, what about the other princes? Jing Yu blinked and asked. The fight for the throne. Those who deserve to die are all dead. Shangguan Linglong carefully moved closer to Jing Yu's ear and said, the emperor has more than 10 children. Some of them died as soon as they were born. Jing Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. This was a real-life version of seizing the throne. Now the throne is in the hands of the crown prince and the second prince. Shangguan Linglong lowered his voice and said to Jing Yu, I eavesdropped from my father. The crown prince has the support of the 9 emperors. That's why he can sit on the throne. Otherwise, he would have been dethroned long ago. Jing Yu was slightly shocked. She finally understood why Xiao Jingran and Xiao Chen were always against each other. It turned out that Xiao Chen was on the crown prince's side. But it's none of your business. Shangguan Linglong looked at Jing Yu's frightened face. He raised his hand and patted Jing Yu's shoulder and said, you're a girl with no background. You're not a threat to those princes. They won't pay attention to you. It feels good to not be pressured by your family. Shangguan Linglong patted Jing Yu's shoulder enviously. What's so good about it? Jing Yu helplessly shrugged and said, you can marry the person you like. Shangguan Linglong looked at Jing Yu and said, as the young miss of the general's residence, in the future, not only will I have to be matched in terms of social status, I might even have to marry someone I don't like because of the political power of the court. Shangguan Linglong lowered her gaze. No way, this is a forced marriage. Jing Yu widened her eyes and said, yeah, this is the family. There are good and bad sides. Ning Xiangyuan's eyes dimmed slightly as she said. Jing Yu suddenly fell silent. There were gains and losses. No one watched the rest of the competition. Jing Yu also returned to Xiao Chen's side. She held her chin and looked like she was in deep thought. Jing Yu's sudden silence made Xiao Chen feel a little strange. Are you tired? Xiao Chen looked at Jing Yu, who was holding her chin in a daze. Jing Yu glanced at Xiao Chen without saying anything. Xiao Chen frowned. What did she mean by looking at him without saying anything? This Jing Lang is really getting better and better. Emperor Xiao Ye's praise came from the high seat. Jing Yu was slightly stunned and looked up. Only then did she see that the person who went up was actually Jing Lang. That riding outfit and handsome appearance really had the demeanor of a general. Jing Yu blinked and looked at Jing Lang's movements. She was shocked to find that he had used the same method she had used against Xiao Jingran. He broke through the encirclement and scored by himself. Interested? Xiao Yi obviously saw it too. He clapped his hands and laughed. He turned to look at Jing Yu and said, look at the situation. I didn't expect that he would learn your tactics. Interesting. Jing Yu laughed dryly. She blinked and looked at Jing Lang as he walked forward. Xiao Yi smiled and gave him a reward. When Jing Lang left, his gaze fell on Jing Yu. However, he looked away after a glance. There was nothing strange about it. After the cold food festival, Jing Yu was exhausted. She dragged her body back to her courtyard. Chapter 128. After the cold food festival, Jing Yu was completely exhausted. She dragged her body back to her own courtyard and laid on the bed without moving. She was still thinking about what Shangguan Linglong said today. She pursed her lips slightly and sank into deep thought. Imperial Consort? Imperial Consort? The next morning, Jing Yu was still asleep when she was woken up by Yin Xiao's excited voice. What are you shouting for so early in the morning? Jing Yu kicked away Xiao Chen's leg that was propped on her body. She looked at Xiao Chen's sleepy appearance and helplessly rubbed her forehead. Why was it that she could see this guy sleeping on her bed every morning when she woke up? He was clearly nowhere to be seen before she went to bed. Jing Yu stared speechlessly at Xiao Chen. She walked past him and got off the bed to open the door. She looked at the excited Yin Xiao and asked, "What is it?" "Imperial consort. Gold, a lot of gold was sent over." Yin Xiao looked at Jing Yu excitedly and said, "Eh." Jing Yu was originally still a little sleepy. When she heard the gold, her entire body shuddered and she completely woke up. She tugged at Yin Xiao and asked, "Where is it?" Xing Yi Darren sent it to the courtyard. This servant had it moved into the small room. Yin Xiao pointed outside the courtyard and said, "Go go go, let's go take a look." Jing Yu pulled Yin Xiao and was about to go over. "Imperial consort's clothes, you're not wearing an outer garment." Yin Xiao grabbed Jing Yu, who was about to leave, and said. Jing Yu looked at her appearance in her inner garment and helplessly rubbed her forehead. She really didn't know what the ancient people were thinking. She wasn't even naked. Why did she have to wear an extra layer of clothing? Jing Yu turned and walked into the room. She looked at Xiao Chen, who was still lying down, and said unhappily, "Xiao Chen, hurry and get up. Someone sent gold to your door." Xiao Chen slowly opened his eyes and looked at Jing Yu with narrowed eyes and said, "You like gold that much?" "I do. Who doesn't like money?" Jing Yu said as she put on her clothes. Xiao Chen stood up and said faintly, "There are many in the storehouse. Take them if you like." "Pooh." Jing Yu looked at Xiao Chen in horror. After confirming that Xiao Chen wasn't joking, she became excited. How could this man give all the money to her so easily? Why do I feel like there's a conspiracy here? She must not fall into a trap. "That's your money. I don't want it." Jing Yu raised her chin arrogantly. Xiao Chen's eyes darkened. Yin Xiao watched in astonishment as Xiao Chen and Jing Yu walked out of the house. Her little heart was pounding. From the looks of it, the 9 emperors had been inside the house the whole time when she was making a fuss. Yin Xiao immediately shrank to the side and didn't dare to raise her head to look at Jing Yu. Jing Yu followed Yin Xiao's footsteps and arrived at the room filled with gold. The moment she opened the door, she saw the boxes of glistening gold. She instantly cheered and pounced over. She touched the boxes of gold and drooled. "This is real gold, ah." Xiao Chen looked at Jing Yu indifferently. He looked at her greedy face and said, "What do you plan to do with this gold?" "Of course it's to get rich." Jing Yu stood up excitedly and said, "I want to build a beautiful house. Take over a mountain. Then I'll buy Jinyan restaurant." Jing Yu said. Her heart was filled with excitement. "Build a house?" Xiao Chen's face slowly darkened. He looked at Jing Yu and said, "You want to move out of the mansion?" Chapter 129. Build a house? Xiao Chen's face slowly darkened. He looked deeply at Jing Yu and said, "You want to move out of the palace?" Cough cough cough. When Jing Yu heard Xiao Chen's words, which were filled with killing intent, she suddenly trembled. She hastily ran to Xiao Chen's side and fawningly said, "How could that be? Look, the two of us aren't married yet." "No, we're not married yet." Junimo she swallowed and looked at Xiao Chen's gloomy face. "I just want to try the feeling of being welcomed into the family. If I stay in the palace, won't I not feel like I'm getting married? Getting married is a big thing. It only happens once in a lifetime. You can't be so hasty. You will definitely fulfill my small request." Jing Yu looked pitifully at Xiao Chen and blinked her eyes. Xiao Chen continued to be silent, but his expressions softened a lot. Even if you don't like it, we can build a house. In the future, it can be our wedding room." Jing Yu carefully looked at Xiao Chen and said, "Wedding room?" Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows in confusion. Jing Yu racked her brains trying to convince Xiao Chen, but in the end, she threw out this sentence, That's right. In the future, that house will be our world." "Our world?" Xiao Chen frowned again. He stared at Jing Yu and said, "In this palace, if you don't want to be disturbed, I will chase them out." Jing Yu wiped the sweat from her forehead. Oh my, why is it so tiring to convince this man? What matters between husband and wife is the mood. Do you understand the mood? Jingyu angrily glared at Xiaochen and said, don't you think that living in the house you built will have more atmosphere? You don't understand romance at all. If you don't agree, then forget it. Jingyu pouted and turned to leave. Just as she turned, the silent Xiaochen pulled her into his embrace. Jingyu was shocked. She looked up at Xiaochen's burning eyes and suddenly blushed. Why is she blushing? It's not like I've never been hugged or seen before. You can't wait to start planning the wedding? Jingyu could clearly hear the joy in Xiaochen's voice. I just want to build a house that I like. Jingyu's cheeks instantly turned red as she hurriedly lowered her head. Okay, if you want to build it. Xiaochen's lips slowly curved into a smile as he said, where do you want to build it? Tell Xing Yi to mark out the land. If you need manpower, this king's army will be at your beck and call. Jingyu's eyes widened in shock. She looked at Xiaochen with fear and surprise in her eyes. She looked at Xiaochen excitedly and said, really? Really? When has this king ever gone back on his word? Xiaochen calmly raised his eyebrows. Xiaochen, I like you so much. Jingyu suddenly jumped up in joy. She excitedly hugged Xiaochen and cheered. Her excited words made Xiaochen's eyes slowly deepen. Jingyu's cheers made Xiaochen's heart flutter. This king is very happy, Xiaochen said as he tightly hugged Jingyu's waist and looked deeply into Jingyu's eyes. Jingyu was slightly stunned. She blinked and looked at Xiaochen. Grow up quickly? Xiaochen bent down and pecked Jingyu's lips. He let go of her and walked away with steady steps, leaving behind a dazed Jingyu. What just happened? What the hell did Xiaochen mean by saying, grow up quickly? Chapter 130. Jingyu's hair stood on end. She lowered her head to look at her 14-year-old body and thought about the fact that she had not slept with Xiaochen every day. When she thought about Xiaochen's age, she was instantly terrified. In ancient times, Xiaochen would have had multiple wives at his age. But he did not have a single woman. Not to mention women, there was not even a female cat in the prince's residence other than her and Yin Xiao. What was going on? Oh my god. Xiaochen looked like he couldn't wait to eat her up. Jingyu did not feel good. Looking at the gold on the ground, she suddenly lost her enthusiasm and fell into deep thought. She was a woman in her 30s or 40s. She really hadn't thought about the relationship between husband and wife. Furthermore, if the person she was considering was Xiaochen, Yin Xiao. Yin Xiao. Jingyu suddenly stood up and shouted, this servant is here. What's wrong, imperial concubine? Yin Xiao quickly ran in and bowed. Quickly go and see if there is any empty land in the city. I want to build a house. Jingyu pulled Yin Xiao and ran out. There was only one thought left in her mind. Quickly move out. This was a wolf's den. What if one day Xiaochen could not control himself and pounced on her? Mamma mia. So scary. However, before Jingyu could choose a piece of land to build a house on, the etiquette course had already begun intense training. The academy had issued an order to conduct a 1-month closed-door training. The purpose was naturally to prepare for the etiquette assessment in June. What? Closed completely? Jingyu widened her eyes in shock. She blinked and asked Xiaochen. Xiaochen indifferently handed the invitation to Jingyu. How can it be like this? Was it like this in the past? Jingyu frowned and asked as she looked at the contents of the invitation. In the past, there were also closed-door training, but it was only for 10 days. Xiaochen raised his hand to take a sip of tea and said, but this time, it was the Empress Dowager who spoke. She said that she wanted to make the etiquette better, so the 10 days of seclusion was increased to a month. This is too perverted. Jingyu's lips twitched as she said pitifully, in other words, I have to be locked up in the academy for a month? Xiaochen narrowed his eyes and nodded. Don't. Jingyu wanted to cry, but no tears came out. It's fine if you're just going to send me to school, but you're going to lock me up. Jingyu, I suspect that someone is plotting this behind the scenes. Xiaochen's expression was somewhat grave. He frowned at Jingyu and said, You must be very careful in the academy. What do you mean? Jing Yu's heart trembled slightly, and her expression slowly darkened. She frowned as she looked at Xiao Chen and asked, "This matter came out of the blue, and I'm afraid that someone will do something to harm you." Xiao Chen frowned slightly in annoyance and said, "Don't worry, if there is even the slightest movement, I will definitely bring you out unharmed even if I have to flatten the academy." Jing Yu's heart trembled slightly, and her expression changed. She frowned at Xiao Chen and said, "Is there any movement from the crown prince and the second prince?" "It's fine, I'll take care of it." Xiao Chen glanced at Jing Yu indifferently and didn't say anything else. After telling Jing Yu to be at ease, he turned and left. Jing Yu's heart was not calm. She had already expected this. Xiao Chen was a member of the imperial family, and this was a matter for the imperial family. Chapter 131. However, Jing Yu's heart was not calm. She had already thought that this would happen. Xiao Chen was a member of the imperial family, so this was a matter of the imperial family. Forget it, Xiao Chen would handle it himself. Jing Yu shook off the messy thoughts in her mind and lowered her head to look at the booklet in her hand. A cold light flashed in her eyes. If this was specifically targeted at her, then the following month would not be peaceful at all. However, did they really think that she, Jing Yu, was a soft persimmon that anyone could bully? Let them go. Jing Yu smiled happily and threw the booklet to one side. She continued to look for Xing Er to discuss the matter of building a house. During this period of time, Jing Yu went to a few sites, but she was unable to find one that she was satisfied with. This made Jing Yu very worried. "Yin Xiao, why did you bring so many clothes and accessories?" Jing Yu's mouth twitched as she looked at Yin Xiao's chest full of clothes and accessories. She was instantly at a loss. Imperial concubine, you naturally have to bring more accessories and clothes in the academy. Otherwise, you will be outshined by others. Yin Xiao said seriously. Don't be so busy." Jing Yu saw that Yin Xiao was still pretending and instantly rushed over to take out the things inside. She picked 3 or 4 sets of clothes that she liked and placed them there. However, she threw all the accessories to one side. Imperial concubine? Yin Xiao looked at Jing Yu's actions and instantly pouted her lips in grievance. "Go get those storybooks. If you have nothing to do, you can read them to pass the time." Jing Yu directed Yin Xiao and said, "Also, don't keep calling me Imperial concubine. Xiao Chen and I are not married yet." "Then let's call you Quasi-Imperial concubine," Yin Xiao said as she took the book. "Is there a difference?" Jing Yu's hand paused slightly as she asked speechlessly. Jing Yu looked at the box filled with items and a bag of silver before nodding her head in satisfaction. Bribery should be useful these days. Perhaps the money could be used here. Jing Yu stroked her chin and walked around the room to make sure she didn't miss anything. "All right." Jing Yu clapped her hands as she thought of something. "Xing Er." Jing Yu turned around and shouted towards the door. "What orders does Imperial concubine have?" Xing Er turned around and bowed slightly towards Jing Yu. "Go and ask Xiao Chen if he has any handy weapons, such as a short knife or dagger. I'll bring them with me for self-defense." Jing Yu looked at Xing Er and said. Xing Er paused slightly when he heard this. He looked at Jing Yu before bowing and walking out. "Ayaya, I'm going to the prison tomorrow," Jing Yu said as she lay on the bed. "Imperial concubine, we're going to the academy, not the prison." She was tidying up the clothes that had been messed up when she heard Jing Yu's words. She frowned and replied. "What's the difference? It's all about locking people up," Jing Yu mumbled. She took off her shoes and climbed onto the bed. She laid down comfortably on the bed and prepared to rest. Yin Xiao tidied up the things and went downstairs. Jing Yu was half asleep when she heard a strange sound beside her. Jing Yu turned around unhappily and continued to sleep. However, she felt something close to her. A pair of hands lifted her head and then she felt her head resting on something hard. Jing Yu opened her hazy eyes uncomfortably. The first thing she saw was Xiao Chen's handsome face that looked slightly tired. "Xiao Chen, it's you?" Jing Yu's voice was filled with sleepiness. She mumbled and closed her eyes again. Chapter 132. Xiaochen, it's you? Jingyu's voice was filled with sleepiness as she mumbled and closed her eyes again. Did I wake you up? Xiaochen asked as he lifted his hand to caress Jingyu's cheek. No. Jingyu replied drowsily with her eyes closed. I can't give it to you tomorrow. Xing Er told me you wanted a dagger, so this is for you. Xiaochen's expression softened slightly as he brought the dagger in his hand to Jingyu. Jingyu frowned as she looked at the pitch-black dagger, feeling helpless. But black again, Jingyu felt numb as she silently took the dagger from Xiaochen's hand and slowly pulled it out. The cold gleam of the blade made Jingyu's entire body tremble. She narrowed her eyes as she raised her hand to caress the blade. Suddenly, she looked at Xiaochen excitedly and said, Good dagger. Where did you get it? When have I ever given you anything bad? Xiaochen smiled as he looked at Jingyu's happy expression. It's really not bad. The weight is just right. Jingyu nodded her head in satisfaction. As long as you like it. Xiaochen looked at Jingyu's expression as she couldn't bear to let go of the dagger. He raised his eyebrows slightly and took it from her. He put it to the side and said calmly, Stop playing with it. You're going to sleep now. That? Jingyu pouted unhappily as she watched Xiaochen take the dagger away. But when she thought about how she would be able to carry it with her tomorrow, she was satisfied. She slowly lay down and closed her eyes as though she was about to fall asleep. Suddenly, she opened her eyes as though she had thought of something. What are you going to do tomorrow? Why can't you give it to me? Jingyu frowned as she looked at Xiaochen beside her. She had no idea that her words carried a hint of resentment and questioning. I have something to do. Xiaochen was slightly taken aback. He hugged Jingyu and said, I will definitely pick you up when you come back. It's nothing. I was just asking. Jingyu replied calmly. This time, she really closed her eyes and went to sleep. When she opened her eyes again, it was already morning. Xiaochen was indeed nowhere to be seen. The person in charge of sending Jingyu to the school was Xing Er. When they arrived at the school, they saw that all the ladies were starting to move their things inside. Jingyu silently turned her head and saw that she only had one box. She was speechless. Was she planning to move the entire house? Jingyu. Shangguan Linglan happily waved her hand and walked over. You're all here. Jingyu also smiled. When she was about to talk to Shangguan Linglan, she saw the things that had been moved inside being carried out. Suddenly, they all widened their eyes in confusion, not knowing what was going on. Mother Yun said that all the clothes must be checked before entering. Your clothes will be temporarily kept by the school. The school will distribute clothes for the ladies to wear during this month. The cold-faced Mother Yun stood in front of the door and looked at them indifferently. After she finished speaking, everyone was stunned. After so long, did she mean that they only needed to bring people? They didn't need to bring anything? Fortunately, I didn't bring much. Shangguan Linglan laughed happily. Jingyu also had a complacent look. When they finally entered the school, only some books, money, and jewelry were left. Everything else was confiscated. The ladies complained, but Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan were calm. Then Jingyu wore the legendary school uniform for the first time in this strange world. Chapter 133. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan were calm. Then, Jingyu put on the legendary school uniform for the first time in this alternate world. The blue and white stripes were simple and elegant. After everyone put on the uniform, they couldn't help but look dignified. However, why is this uniform a tube top? Jingyu wanted to cry but had no tears to shed as she looked at her flat chest. Her heart was filled with grief. Ning Xiangyuan was also very helpless. Jingyu silently turned her head to look at Ning Xiangyuan's bulging chest. The difference was too big. Yuanyuan, go away. I don't want to stand with you. Jingyu roared at Ning Xiangyuan with a face full of accusation. I don't know why it's like this. Ning Xiangyuan's cheeks were slightly red as she looked uneasily at Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan looked at each other and sighed helplessly. Suddenly, they calmed down and silently sighed, accepting this fact that they couldn't ignore. When the rooms were allocated, the three of them shared a room and moved into the school. Jingyu, Shangguan Linglan and the other two naturally lived together as a matter of course. This group of people living together was very lively. The entire courtyard was filled with the sound of laughter. However, this laughter did not last long because the legendary training had finally arrived. The level of this training was simply many times more severe than in the past. Yeah, hurry up and massage me. It had only been a short 3 days, but most of them were already lying on the ground in exhaustion. Their feet were trembling from the training. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan looked like they were about to collapse, not to mention Ning Xiangyuan and the other young ladies who had never suffered before. At this pace, how many of us can withstand it? Jingyu said as she massaged Ning Xiangyuan's legs. I will definitely endure it. Ning Xiangyuan gritted her teeth and said. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan were slightly stunned. Sure enough, I can't ignore a woman's explosive power. Jingyu shrugged nonchalantly. For Jingyu, who had undergone more rigorous training, this was a piece of cake. As for Shangguan Linglan, who had grown up in the military, it was needless to say. Jingyu and Ning Xiangyuan got along very well, but the people in the other rooms didn't feel the same way. After class, Jingyu and Ning Xiangyuan sat in the room and had tea and snacks. Suddenly, they heard a loud noise coming from the room next door. You were the last one to leave the house. If it wasn't you who stole my bracelet, who else could it be? A slightly shrill voice was heard, successfully attracting the attention of Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan. Everyone looked over and saw that it was the room where they were staying. I didn't. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan looked at each other, stood up, and walked over. They saw the people pointing at the door and frowned slightly. They looked inside and saw Lu Miaoqiu sitting on the ground and Dong Si glaring at Lu Miaoqiu with her hands on her hips. You still dare to quibble? Dong Si's eyes were full of coldness. She stared at Lu Miaoqiu and said, Then why didn't you open the box for me to check? Lu Miaoqiu's face turned red, but she couldn't say a word. What? Can't say anything? Dong Si sneered at Lu Miaoqiu and said, I think you have a guilty conscience. Chapter 134. What? Can't say anything? Dong Si sneered at Lu Miaoqiu and said, I think you have a guilty conscience. I didn't take your things. Lu Miaoqiu's voice was as soft as a mosquito's foot. Compared to Dong Si's confidence, her explanation was even more feeble and powerless. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan's mouths twitched silently as they watched from the outside. Okay, then let me open the box to see if you took it or not. Dong Si said as she walked into the room and carried the box out. Lu Miaoqiu's expression changed drastically when she saw the box being carried out. She hurriedly stood up and pounced over. Don't touch my things. Lu Miaoqiu hugged the box tightly and looked at Dong Si in horror. Get out of my way. When Dong Si saw Lu Miaoqiu's expression, she was even more certain that Lu Miaoqiu had taken her things. She rushed forward and pushed Lu Miaoqiu aside. She kicked the box forcefully and all the things in the box spilled out. Everyone looked at the box that had been kicked to the ground in shock. The contents of the box had all been poured out. The shattered inkstone and the spilled ink had completely dyed the box of paintings black. However, there was nothing else in the box other than the paintings. Lu Miaoqiu screamed and hurriedly went forward to pick up the paintings. Large drops of tears fell from her eyes, and for a moment, she was sobbing uncontrollably. The way she touched the paintings made Jingyu feel sorry for her. How can there be nothing? That's strange. Dong Si flipped through the paintings without any pity. She glared at Lu Miaoqiu and said, Did you hide it somewhere else? Tell me. Lu Miaoqiu just kept crying and didn't say anything. Shangguan Linglan finally couldn't stand it anymore. He pushed aside the people in front of him and strode in front of Dong Si and said loudly, Miss Dong, have you caused enough trouble? Miss Shangguan, I'm just asking where my bracelet is. Dong Si saw that the person who stood out was Shangguan Linglan. She restrained herself and stopped searching, but she still looked unyielding. Your bracelet is important, but other people's things aren't important? Shangguan Linglan sneered and looked at Dong Si and said, Furthermore, you didn't find the bracelet in her box. Maybe this is just an excuse you made up to make things difficult for Miss Lu. Who knows if she hid it somewhere else? Shangguan Linglan's words, Dong Erza's face was flushed red and she retorted angrily. That's good. Shangguan Linglan sneered. He turned around and squatted down beside Lu Miaoqiu. He looked straight at Lu Miaoqiu and said, Tell me, did you take her things? I didn't. Lu Miaoqiu looked at Shangguan Linglan nervously and said, Then do you dare to let her search? If she can't find anything, I will make the decision for you. Shangguan Linglan looked at Lu Miaoqiu with a firm face and said, Lu Miaoqiu seemed to be frightened by Shangguan Linglan's actions. She probably didn't expect that someone would stand up for her at this time. Lu Miaoqiu's eyes were full of gratitude and she responded in a low voice. Since you want to find it, then let's search. Shangguan Linglan smiled at Lu Miaoqiu to appease her. He turned to look at Dong Siya and said, But if you can't find it, Miss Dong has to explain the books on the ground. I'd like to see what you will say to Mother Yun when you see a girl who indiscriminately makes things difficult for her classmate. I'll pay for them, Dong Siya said disdainfully. All right, then I'll burn all of your things now. They're not worth much anyway. Jing Yu crossed her arms and laughed. The words she spat out were extremely arrogant. You dare. Dong Siya's expression changed, and she glared at Jing Yu. Why wouldn't I dare? Jing Yu smiled disdainfully. I think we should ask Mother Yun to speak. Shangguan Linglan helped Lu Miaoqiu put the things back into the box. He stood up and said, If everyone is like you, Miss Dong, insulting others indiscriminately, I don't think we can stay in the academy anymore. Chapter 136. Forget it, forget it. Lu Miaoqiu stood up. When she heard that Shangguan Linglan was going to report to Mother Yun, her eyes were filled with horror as she spoke. Humph, she said, forget it. Why are you meddling in other people's business? Dong Siya's eyes flashed with complacency. She glanced at Jing Yu and the others indifferently, raised her chin, and turned to enter the room. Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan's faces were livid. They turned around and looked at Lu Miaoqiu with disappointment. They could have taken this opportunity to severely suppress Dong Siya, but they had become meddlers in other people's business. I'm sorry to implicate you. Lu Miaoqiu's cheeks were faintly stained with tears. She carefully looked at Jing Yu and the others and said, Oh my God, I'm defeated by you. Jing Yu sighed with her hand on her forehead. She turned around and walked into the courtyard. Ning Xiangyuan's face was full of sympathy. She watched Lu Miaoqiu struggle to carry the box into the room, then turned around and sat back down with Jing Yu. Tell me, what is this? Jing Yu angrily took a sip of tea from the table and said, Originally, Jing Yu thought that Lu Miaoqiu had helped her when Jing Yu fell into the water last time. She wanted to take this opportunity to vent her anger for her, but it turned out to be like this. Jing Yu, don't blame Lu Miaoqiu. It's no wonder that she tolerates her family's situation. Shangguan Linglan helplessly sighed and said, Her family? What's wrong with her family? Jing Yu slightly paused her action of drinking tea. She blinked and looked at Shangguan Linglan and asked, I know a little about this. Ning Xiangyuan slowly opened her mouth and said, Lu Miaoqiu is a concubine's daughter. She was not like this when her mother was alive. At that time, her mother doted on her very much. Although she was a concubine's daughter, she lived like a legitimate daughter. Jing Yu knew a little about the distinction between legitimate and concubine, so she blinked and looked at Ning Xiangyuan in confusion and asked, Then why did she become like this? This situation became like this after her mother passed away 2 years ago. Ning Xiangyun slightly sighed and said, It's normal for the legal wife to suppress a concubine's daughter. Without her mother's protection, she lived like a servant in the Lu's house. Master Lu didn't care about the matters in the backyard, so over time it became like this. So that's how it is. Looking at how precious she was with those paintings, what is that? Jing Yu frowned. Lu Miaoqiu's mother was a talented woman who was famous throughout the imperial city. Those paintings were all made by her mother. She must have missed her mother dearly, so she always kept the paintings with her. She didn't expect today's incident to happen. Ning Xiangyuan shook her head and sighed. If that's the case, then we can't let Dong Si-er get away with it. Jing Yu glared. Yeah, she is only a concubine's daughter. If she can force Dong Si-er out of the school, what will she do in the future? Will she hide somewhere and never see anyone again? Ning Xiangyuan shook her head and said, This? Jing Yu furrowed her brows tightly. Why was it so tiring to be a person? Forget it. In the future, I'll help her as much as I can in this school. Shangguan Linglan was also helpless. She knew a little about Lu Miaoqiu, but she didn't know that Lu Miaoqiu was living such a difficult life now. If she continues to live with Dong Si-er, she will definitely be bullied everywhere. Let's go and talk to Mother Yun and let her live with us in the bed. Jing Yu pursed her lips and said. As soon as she finished speaking, Ning Xiangyuan and Shangguan Linglan's eyes lit up and they both nodded. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.